Okay, so next section, number 2, is Rabbinical decree. Although under Rabbinical law, it is not forbidden to tear destructively, the sages were concerned that the people would tear things on Shabbos. If the people would tear things on Shabbos, they might be inclined to mend what they tore, and thus transgress the prohibition of sowing. We need to see how. Okay, the sages therefore decreed that it is forbidden even to tear destructively on Shabbos. However, since the motivation for the decree was concerned with sowing or mending, the sages applied only to the type of material whose mending would constitute the transgression of the prohibition of sowing. So let me quickly see how long is this. Okay, so let's finish and then we go back and explain. As explained in chapter 6, the prohibition of sowing, it's previous chapter, sowing, sewing includes sewing, gluing, taping, or stapling. Okay. Accordingly, it is forbidden to tear destructively any type of material that can be repaired, very interesting, right? Keywords, right? By either sewing, gluing, or taping, or stapling. This includes paper, cloth, leather, plastic, or similar soft materials. However, it is permitted to tear destructively an article that cannot be mended or sewn. For example, it is permitted to tear or cut a string destructively. Okay. Since torn strings is repaired by tying, right? Nobody's gluing the strings. But I mean, you can sew two pieces of the string. Okay, but it's okay. But usually nobody would do that. Much stronger if you want a better bond. So of course you need to tie. Right. So which is not so tying is not category of sewing. Thus, if a package is tied up with a string, and it's fastened with a type of the knot that may not be untied on Shabbos, so meaning like double knot, right? So permanent knot. One may cut the string in destructive fashion. However, if package is glued shut or sealed in a paper or cellophane wrapper, plastic wrapper, one may not tear it open, even in a manner that destroys the wrapping, except under conditions set forth below. Okay, so as we understand, it's not such an easy mitzvah, right? I mean, it's a lot of information. So let's try to review, and we're going to explain every sentence. BeEzrat HaShem. Okay, so it says again, section 2 from the beginning with explanation. Although under the biblical law, it is not forbidden to tear destructively, right? So as we just explained, meaning I don't care about this wrapping. Let's say I need the content, right? Okay. The sages were concerned that if people would tear things on Shabbos, they might be inclined to mend what they tore, and thus result the prohibition of sewing. So of course the sages in their great vision, so they say if we allow people to tear just whatever they want, so even in destructive fashion, it's not going to work. So basically, what as we already understand the logic, what sages do, first they prohibit, in general prohibition, and then they do special exceptions when most likely people are not going to go so far as transgress the actual Melachah. The sages therefore decreed that it is forbidden to tear destructively on Shabbos. So whatever I said about food packages is exception. So it's proper, of course, to open all of the food packages, all of the cans and cans and bottles and jars, right? Whatever you need for Shabbos before Shabbos starts for sure. But after the fact, so if it's very special food for Shabbos, they would allow us to open it. Okay. However, since the motivation for a decree was to concern with sewing or mending, the sages applied it only in the types of material that whose mending would constitute transgression of the prohibition of sewing. Right. So since they say don't tear unless because you might get to mend it, so meaning these wrappers or something food wrappers, nobody fix them, right? Even if you tear, okay, it tore. So what can you do, right? You throw out. So this disposable things, of course, they're not going to fall under this category. Okay, so again, but again, only for Shabbos needs. Okay, as explained in chapter 6, the prohibition of sewing includes sewing, gluing, taping, and stapling. So all of these things, which is not like sewing, the classic example of sewing, but it's it does exactly the same job, right? You connect two entities together, whereas gluing, taping, right? Taping and stapling. Staple, right? It's going to stay there for a long time. Accordingly, it is forbidden to tear destructively any type of material that can be repaired. So, I mean, all of the materials I think can be repaired, like cloth or something, by either sewing, gluing, or taping or stapling. So he said, if you can fix those materials, of course, we're talking about soft materials like paper, cloth, leather, plastic, and similar soft materials, right? So all of them you can, I think, all of them you can do with a glue, with a tape, or with a sewing, right, and such. So some people like to use this Scotch tape everywhere. So we were in an apartment once, had to clean this apartment because somebody else, helping somebody because preparing for other people to move in. It's very interesting. So this person that lived before the tenant, they were into this Scotch tape everywhere, absolutely out on the ceiling, wherever they glue, on the windows, like everywhere, in the kitchen, absolutely everywhere. So I heard the joke: if you cannot fix something with a Scotch tape, it only means that you did not apply enough. So meaning enough, you can do a plumbing fixing with this what is it, Scotch tape. However, it is permitted to tear destructively an article that cannot be mended by sewing. For example, it is permitted to tear or cut strings destructively. Okay, so I mean, of course, it is a little extreme example, but we got it. So especially if, in olden days, when many food packages, when you go to the store, they would put in a box for you and do even today they do in bakeries, right? You go to the bakeries, you buy cookies that they sell it by weight. Sometimes they sell it by pieces, so they put it nicely or in a box and they tie with a string. So if you forgot to untie the string, so in Jewish bakery you usually use the and not in a bowl, right? So that's not a problem. But sometimes, and I saw it, they would do double knot. So double knot is not allowed to untie. So meaning what? That you can cut through the string. And this string, of course, nobody is going to try to sew together or glue together. It's not going to hold. So the only way is to connect the two pieces through tying. Tying has nothing to do with sewing. That's why it's not under the prohibition of what sages meant. Right. So what did they mean? They meant not to allow tearing of the materials of the joints that you might be willing to fix it after that. But right, here's the fixing, but a different type of fixing. It's not sewing for sure. So that string is a very good example. However, package is glue shut or sealed, sealed in a paper or plastic, one may not tear open even in a manner that destroy the wrapping, right? Except under the conditions set forth. For example, it's very practical. You want cookies, right? You want an open box of cookies and a glue shut on top. That's a problem. You cannot open, so it's going to be for sure tearing. and many times there is some writings between the stops. For sure, you're going to do many milach, so it would not be allowed. So there is a special way how we should open the packages. So even of course, it is allowed to open cookies or cereal or whatever you want, right? But there are special ways.